This is K4A, Knowledge for All Educational Videos channel. We are continuing with a work in progress, K4A work in progress games and projects. Today I'm going to show how I improved the minor game I'm currently working, not with my full strength, but from time to time. So no tutorials yet, I'm sorry, but just a couple of new videos to show the progress on the games I'm making so far. So I will click on play button to start the preview of the game. So in previous video I was showing how we had in this game we had character moving and jumping and shooting, and we had resource blocks all over the place, and that was it more or less. I have added a couple of features, so let's see what they are. First of all, in the top left corner, this number which is changing is frames per second, and it's awfully low. I don't know really why is that so. When I turn OBS to shoot the videos, it goes down, and also because maybe of other processes currently on my computer, but anyway it's very low, and you cannot play games like this because it will look laggy and choppy, as you can see right now. It should be 30 or more, so it was 30 before I started shooting. Again, I don't know why it goes lower now, but I also have to do some kind of optimization as soon as possible, so that's one of the reasons I made this code to show for frame per second, and that's not my code, that's from GameMaker, I think from GameMaker website from Yo-Yo Games. So it's only one line of code which shows this frames per second counter in top left corner. So that is the one feature. The second feature is this green grid behind everything on the screen. So this grid is drawn on the screen in green to show how to give me more control and precision on how the resource blocks are spawned and where they show up and so on. And I need it currently. I will delete it, of course, for the publishing of the game, but for now on I needed to experiment a little bit more. Other than that, I have added collectible mechanics of collection, so I can collect items on the screen. I don't know if I had that before. I think I didn't. So for example, when I touch this silver or gray box to my right, it will disappear and it will show up down below over this second number 32, which is the inventory slot. So let's try to do it and see what happens. And yes, you can see how now it's 10, and now when I touch this one it will be 20. So that's how you collect some resource on the screen or in the game so far. It doesn't make sense for you to collect stone or silver like that. It would be too easy. I will add some kind of mechanics onto it later, but I was just testing the collectible mechanics and it works. So you can see I also added this inventory mechanics, which, as I said, reacts to whatever you collect, and it's not very pretty or very usable so far. I will have to improve it later, but it's so far it has only one. It's only usable here just to see if everything works fine as it should. So far it's okay, and it represents some kind of small icons: silver for I don't know, rocks, silver, gray one for ground blocks and so on, so it works good enough for now, but I will have to improve it as soon as possible also. And I have added pickup, we said that, but I have added pickaxe, so you can destroy the ground by clicking on it, and you can see how now changes, the ground is changing from 0 counter to 10, and when it reaches the 10 it will spawn a little collectible item, which is so far only circle shape, but it will in final again it will be changed into some kind of ground resource collectible look, and when I touch it this inventory slot will turn into 10. So now it's 10 ground and 70 silver. I will collect a couple of more just to show another mechanics, but so far you can see it's working. Don't look, it doesn't matter why it's laggy, I will fix that later, but it's working as it is supposed to work. You can destroy the ground and resources and collect whatever they spawn. And I also added building mechanics again in some very basic form. So for example, first of all, let me show you one more thing. If I press the B button, there will be some kind of yellow grid around the character, around the player, and a player would snap to the closest center or to the center of the block, or to the this grid line, green grid line. So I will maybe change that, but the whole idea was just that whenever I press this B button, my player would stuck to the grid in perfect pixel sense, and then around it I would have a grid on which I can click. I haven't added that mechanics yet, but for example, what I want to do here is that I can click on this yellow grid around the character, and then if I have enough resources, I can build something on it, in like a ground block or some kind of, I don't know, wooden door or whatever, but it will be precisely placed on this grid, which should be placed on the green grid, exactly perfect in a pixel way. But for problem so far is that again there are so many bugs, small bugs and glitches. This as you can see, this yellow grid is a little bit off the green grid. I don't want that, but this player character sprite is 1 or 2 pixels. When it moves, it's not perfectly on the, it wasn't perfectly on the touching the ground, so I had to change that with the code or whatever, I forgot how, but on the sprites it was like floating a pixel or 2 above or below the floor. So changing that, I also changed this his pivot point, so I unintentionally changed the grid around him, so I will have to fix that. But anyway, what I want to say is that I will probably add some kind of build mechanics here around the character, so he can by pressing some kind of button he could make different kind of items in this world, and those items would be precisely placed on the grid like this. So I have added that, I have added some kind of mechanics to instantiate, to create objects, but it's not also perfect yet. It's not perfect yet in terms of it's not always on the grid. Now when I'm staying here like this in the perfect center of my on the grid line, on the green grid, and when I press the button for creation, you can see that my inventory and this number here 30 will go from 30 to 20. Let's try it, and new block will show up here just like that. So I have created some kind of block, and I can now jump and get out of this mine, and that's cool. But again, it's laggy still, but it works at least in some way. I have to fix it in the future version. So again, if I press the button B to show up the grid around the player, and he will snap to the middle, you can see how he snaps to the middle of the nearest grid block or the middle line. So he will always be in the middle on the perfect grid or in the middle of it. But if I don't press that button, and for example if I stay like here, like this here, and if I press the button now for making the block, that block won't be perfectly on the stage, and we can try that to see if it works. Yes, you can see how it's here on it right, it has a couple of pixels. It's not on the edge of this green grid, it's a couple of pixels off, so I will have to fix it for the future version, for the final version. Maybe not, maybe this is okay, because I can only, for example, I can only add a couple of other different checks. For example, like instead of checking if it's perfectly on the grid, I will check only if there is something behind him, that block. If I want to place the block, just check if there is enough space for it, and that's it. So that way I will maybe help and build the game which is not so perfectly spaced, but it will look more natural and fun to play. That's it for this video. I think a lot of features so we have added in this version of the game. We have added the frames per second counter, we have added the green grid so we can check the spacing in our world. So far we have added the yellow grid around the player character, so we can check the blocks around him, so we can use that later for the creation instantiation methods. This is still not working perfectly, but at least it shows up. Then we have added feature so you can build some blocks around you if you had enough resources in your inventory. Then we have added the inventory with 2 space slots. We will add later more, and again inventory is far from perfect. So for example, you can see now that this inventory shows up that there are 70 silver blocks in it. That's okay, but it shows silver blocks on the second place instead of first place, because first place is empty, so it makes no sense that silver blocks are not showing up on first place, and so on and so on. But the main mechanics works for the inventory, it works for resource harvesting, and now it's mostly just tweaking them and checking the conditions to make them work more better and finer and so on. Other than that, this frames per second is very low. I will have to check that, and I will have to fix that as soon as possible, because that's very that's the most important thing. Nobody wants to play the laggy games. And I also I will now delete this, and I will also have to, this is, for example, this is the view of our game, and this is the whole place. You can see how big it is in terms of space. So this whole place is populated with those resource blocks, those ground blocks. So Game Maker, I have made it in the most stupid way, and I didn't care because it was good enough for the prototype, so I will now improve it. But those are all objects which are just instantiated around this level, around this room. So this room is full with objects, and I will now have to find and try a couple of optimization techniques to make it work faster. Like for example, I will deactivate everything which is not visible in this view. So for example, if this player is moving left and around here in this view, and I don't need to see the blocks here and here and here and here and so on. So all the blocks around the player not in the view are not visible, they are not active, and that way the game should be much faster just by using that technique only. And I think that GameMaker has some kind of default functions for deactivating. I haven't used them before, but I think it will work fine with the default values from the GameMaker for the deactivating objects and sprites and so on. Other than that, I will also play a little bit with tiles and try to learn them, and that's it. When I fix that, I will probably be able to make really big levels, and other than that, these basic mechanics will stay the same. It will just work faster and more natural. And other than that, I will also try to add a couple of other mechanics and features in my future videos, and some of those would include, for example, jetpacks. So this guy can move, fly around later maybe in the game if he buys a jetpack, so he can, if he gets stuck in some deep mining shaft or something like that, he cannot jump out, so he can turn on jetpacks and he can fly away. Then maybe dynamite, so you can destroy resources faster and mine them faster. TNT also, dynamite, jetpack, what else? Maybe some kind of like fog of war for mines, so you don't see what is really far from you, like where the resources like gold and silver are, because it would be very easy for you to find them out if you see them on the screen. Instead, it would be more realistic if you have to dig into the unknown and see only a couple of blocks to your left and right and up and down. Then maybe some kind of shop on the ground, elevator, maybe some kind of hook which can pull you up out of the problem and so on. Then maybe some kind of push mechanics. What else? Some kind of bars for health, for air, maybe miner cards, sorry. Then some skills, upgrades, doors, crafting, ropes, and that I think is more than needed for basic game, and it will take me some time to make and program all of those mechanics, but it will be fun, and I can reuse most of them for other games, so I will probably try to do it. And that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, just showing you here my progress, and I hope I will have something new to show up as soon as possible. Maybe 1 or 2 games will come fast after these videos, also in work in progress videos, but after that I hope I will make some new Scratch tutorials. Sorry again for not making them faster. Bye for now, and thanks for watching.